recording. Okay, so the next question goes that the hiring process of a certain organization after a vacancy is advertised as follows. All right. So applications are accepted from interested persons and stored in a file. An acknowledgement letter is sent to each applicant indicating that his or her application has been received. At a later date, the applications are retrieved from the file, examined, and eligible applicants are selected for an interview. The selected applicants are informed of the date and time of their interviews. After the interviews are held, the successful applicant's data is moved to the personnel file, since this person will now be an employee of the organization. This is one that we did already. All right. Finally, letters are sent to each applicant informing him or her of the outcome of the application. You all remember this question?
Yep.
Right. So, okay. So, in terms of external entities, right? In terms of external entities, what do we have in terms of external entities? That's a question to you, students. Right, so we have applicants. So we can have some entities, external entities, and our external entities are applicants, and so right, so we have applicants, and an acknowledgement letter is sent to each application, applicants are accepted from interested persons and stored in a file. So the first process that we really have seems to be some sort of application collection process. Okay, so the first process that we have is an application collection and so this application collection process will, of course, take the job application. Let me not write it in my handwriting here. All right. It will take the job application from the applicant and it will do what with it? It'll do two things with it.
Store it in a data store.
Right, it'll store it in a data store. So we have this data store here, D1. And what else will happen with this process? Notify, of course, that you were accepted. Not accepted, and notify that they received the application. Right? Application receipt. So we have an application receipt going back to the applicant. And we have the applicant file here. So we have the applicant file here. So what happens next? At a later date, the applications are retrieved from the file, examined, and eligible applicants are selected for an interview. So this is some sort of verification process going on here. So the second thing is that we have a process that verifies, right? A process that verifies. So this is the second process, right? So again, this is also a job application here. Right, so this is a job application here. And this information then is now pulled from the file and it goes through the verification process, right? So we have an application verification process. And now what happens there? Eligible applicants are selected for an interview, right? So how do we represent this? We just send an interview notification to our eligible applicants. The selected applicants are informed of the date and time of the interviews, right? So the interview notification, date slash time, the interview. After interviews are held, the successful applicant's data is moved to the personnel file, since this person will now be an employee of the organization. Now, if it is that we have an interview process, right, if we could choose to either show the interview process here, but we could choose to show the interview process, or we could choose to assume, hold 1 second, please. Yes. So, yeah, we could show that there's an interview process, all right, and take data from the applicant and have that interview process now updating the applicant file to now moving that personnel file to become an employee of the organization, right? And of course, then letters are sent to each applicant informing them him or her of the outcome of the application. So let's say the successful applicants, sorry, not applicants, the applicants are retrieved from the file, examined, and eligible applicants are selected for an interview. The selected applicants are informed of the date and time of the interview. After the interviews are held, the successful applicant's data is moved to the personnel file, since this person will now be an employee of the organization, right? So here's what we can do. Application verification process, interview notification date and time. So this would have only gone out to eligible applicants, right? I will show an interview process. So my next process here, right? Interview process. And from the interview process, we could assume that an applicant would provide further information. Sorry. Right, so further job related information. And the application verification process could also pass this job information, this application information, right? That application information to the interview process. So that's how we know for each particular applicant, we have their application, they do the interview, and what is the outcome of doing this interview? If the interview is successful, the applicant's data is moved to the personnel file. Since this person will now become an employee of the organization, right? So the interview process will store information to the personnel file. So this is D2, and D2 is a personnel file. Okay. So finally, letters are sent to each applicant informing him or her of the outcome of their application. So, okay, what I would and let me label this one here. Successful applicant information. Okay, so our successful applicant information is sent to the personnel file, and you could possibly even send an update from the interview process to the applicant file to update application status. So you could find out from at this point who got into the interview but who was unsuccessful, who got into the interview and was successful, or who just never even made it to the interview. And they said that everybody is sent, finally letters are sent to each applicant informing him or her of the outcome of the application. So we can have one last process, right? Which is this is the fourth one. And this last process is going to be the application status letter generation process. Okay, so your application status letter generation process. This is where everybody will find out if they get through or not, right? And what this needs is this needs information from the application file, which would have who was successful, who was accepted for the interview, who was not accepted, all right? And this here, so application status is pulled from the applicant file, okay? And this here is now going to send some information to the applicant. And what information it would send to the applicant? It would send the outcome letter. So I realized I missed out information in one little part of this here, and this is the application verification process. With also that process would also update the applicant file. So if it is that you were not successful here, this status here would also do an update. So I can do an update application status coming from That's not the one I wanted to copy. All right, coming from here as well. So we have an update application status coming from the application verification process. So if it is that you were not even eligible for the interview, we will update the application status as well from here. You understand where I'm coming from? Everybody understand where I'm coming from with this?
Yes, sir.
Right? So let me just run through the solution again. When somebody applies, when somebody puts in a job application, the first thing is the application collection process. That what they get from that is a receipt that their application was accepted and the job applications are stored in the applicant file. The applicant file passes that job application to the verification process, which would then update the application status to whether or not these people are good for an interview, or whether it's not acceptable, or whether, at that point. And the persons who are good for the interview get an interview notification and the date and time of their interview. The application for information for the interview persons, and maybe I could clarify that here. The interview application information, right? So interview applicants' information gets passed to the interview process, where they take further information from the person, and the successful applicant gets sent to the personnel file. Unsuccessful people get an application status update. The last thing that happens is that the application letter generation process pulls everybody's information from the applicant file and sends them a letter saying, okay, sorry, we didn't consider you for an interview. Or sorry, we considered you for an interview. We considered you for an interview, but you were not successful at the interview. Everybody understand this document that I've created here?
Yes, sir.
All right, great. All right, so we on to, yeah.
One of the things that's helpful to me personally is just the fact that one of the things that is helpful to me personally is just that when I'm doing these questions, I'll just try to remember that to have the processes and the files and the interactions between them.
Repeat that?
I said was helpful for me personally because if I look at it just how it is right now, it would be kind of complicated, even though it's simple, but representing the processes between them would be mostly the challenge. All I will do is try to remember that it is the processes and the files and the interactions between them.
Yeah. The thing is, remember, a DFD is not linear. It's not linear. So even though there's an order in terms of these processes, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that kind of gives a general idea of what comes first and what comes after. Like in the case of application status letter generation process, that could probably be run before the interviews, because you could collect applications, and then you could do the first round of verification where you say, okay, some people's resumes are just not applicable to this job. At that point, you could do an application letter generation process to weed out that first set of people. And then you send the other people who are interview candidates another application status letter generation. Because at that point, that is kind of like that interview notification there, right? So technically, this and all could have gone to this process, if you wanted to draw it a little different, right? And then you do the interview, and the successful applicant goes there, and the unsuccessful applicants get their files updated. And again, they get a status letter generation process run for them. You understand? But the thing is that this gives you just a general idea of how the system works. So it's not a flow chart. Don't think of it as a flow chart. Think of it, you have to think of it kind of like as just what it is, a map of things that get done in the system and how one process relates to another process. And of course, how people outside of our system will what they could expect from the system. And that's where the context diagram comes into play. Yeah?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. All right. Right, so we say two deliverables from the analysis phase of software engineering, feasibility study and a requirement specification document. What are two reasons for the feasibility study? Notice this is only 2 marks, right? So this two very simple, straightforward reasons. Why would you want to do a feasibility study? We have like five categories that we talked about with feasibility studies.
So it allows a business, like if assuming that is a business, right? Allows a business to identify obstacles in development and operations.
Feasibility study. I need a little more than that. I need it to be a little more specific in your answer. You all remember the 5 areas that we talked about with feasibility study? Right, Krista has it. Right, so it was based on these letters we had, and Krista identified the E inside of there. Right, so it allows a business to identify and you could talk about any one of these: technological, right, economic, legal, operational, or schedule feasibility of pursuing the project. Okay, and for technological, as in, right, does the technology exist? Okay, does the technology exist to pursue right? Economic has to deal with the cost of the system, right? And cost versus the benefit of the system. Will I recoup it? Will I not? So something like free secondary school education in a country. That's something that, because the government in this country pays for your exams, for CSEC and CAPE exams. In a country like Jamaica, that's something that your parents would have had to pay. All right? Our country says, okay, we want at least every citizen in this country to have up to a complete secondary school exam, and that is paid for by the government, right? Through taxes, of course. But in Jamaica, what happens is that they say, okay, no, you get free up to primary. Your primary school education is free, all exams are free, and secondary, what subject you want is where you have to decide to pay for. So, and they do a cost benefit. How good is our workforce going to be if we put a barrier such that not everybody could afford to pay for secondary school education, or at least secondary school certification? And that's where you have to look at your society there, right? That's the cost benefit of that. The legal, right? The legal, of course, can this system be implemented in a particular territory, right? Entered the law of a land. Okay? So some places have strict financial rules. Other places have a little more lax financial rules. It comes like, in terms of a feasibility standard, just talking generally here. In terms of Trinidad and Tobago, once you want to start a little business, a small business in Trinidad and Tobago, you don't really have to, only after a certain amount of time or after you get a certain size, it would be wise to register your business. But once you're starting up and you're operating, you could have your business running years and never register your business with the government, and nobody will ever run you down or anything. So, right, unless of course you become large as an entity, right? But if you have a little tuck shop, something you're running out of your house, nobody's going to come and find you, and a little food shop that you're selling out of your house. In some countries, if you do that for more than 2 months or 3 months, the government will find you, estimate how much money you make from doing that, and decide, okay, we're going to back tax you for how long you've been doing this. And we will fine you because you never registered your business.
Yikes.
That's the legal aspects of it, right? In Germany, you cannot start any business without having a bank account. And all of your business transactions must run through the banks. In Trinidad, you could have a business running for years upon years and never have any sort of bank account or anything. You can keep your money under the mattress and operate out like that, and nobody bothering you except probably anybody watching you and deciding, well, this person making plenty money and keeping it in the house. Okay, and that and all is something that you might have to consider the feasibility of, right? And that might be operational feasibility, right? Things that in terms of sustainability and keeping the system running after it is implemented. So how are you going to keep this business running? It might have a startup cost, but then there's a cost in terms of keeping it running on a month-to-month basis, right? How are you keeping things operational? Who are you hiring to ensure that the system that you've put in place, even though it might be an automated system, it might still need maintenance? Okay, and these are things that you have to check. So you need to identify all of these different feasibility areas, right? In terms of running your feasibility study, would it make sense would it be a cost to you to run this business, or to come up with this piece of software, right? Would it be more trouble down the road? Can it be sustained? This is the way that I would like for you to answer this question. So you want to find out 2 reasons. You could take any 2 of these, right? And of course, the last one is schedule. Let me do this one before I talk again. Schedule, of course, would look at the time frame of development and an investigation into, right, if you can get the project going by when it is needed. Okay, so again, it might very well be possible to get the project, but in terms of when it's needed, sometimes you just think about it too late. So scheduling could include Gantt charts and planning, etc. Right, so scheduling would look at those kind of things. Right, in terms of analysis, analyzing, your Gantt chart could plot out how long it's going to take what, each different part or each different, and then when you get your Gantt chart, you realize, no, we might have to tighten up on some of these timelines, or this project is not going to be worthwhile. Okay, so say for instance, there's a big event coming up, and you see it with video games sometimes, a lot of the time, especially with respect to schedule. A lot of video games have to sacrifice quality as opposed to delivering the product. So the biggest one that it had the other day was I think like Cyberpunk or something. So and the quality, when the trailers look amazing, everybody was hyped for it.
Oh
right?
my, Cyberpunk.
The deadline was the deadline, and when it came out, it was such a mess. Right, the games were so buggy. I think only one system had a successful launch, you could call it. Otherwise, I think PlayStation 4 had to refund money to people and all kind of thing. Am I remembering correctly or no?
Yeah, and they some game retailers was pulling Cyberpunk from their stores and all kind of thing.
Exactly, because there was just so much bad press with it, and that is because of a scheduling. Was it possible that these people could have said, okay, from the get-go, when they made their promise, that it was not feasible on a schedule-wise to produce this software by that time, right? Because you remember you have to consider testing, and maybe it's just that the software was finished, but testing was not enough. And coming back to your Gantt chart example, Tarek, right? Coming back to the Gantt chart example you type out here, maybe they didn't put enough time into testing. Okay, because they thought maybe a month or two, right? It could be too that maybe they needed to test it in such a way for such a game that would have been so versatile. Standard testing wouldn't be the way, right? You basically had to allow people to download and play the game and report on what was going on. Excuse 1 second, please. Right. So the next question. So you could answer along these lines, okay? So reasons why the feasibility study is undertaken, right? To ensure that the cost of the system provides ample benefits for it. To make sure that you're not contravening any laws by implementing the system. Okay? So because think about it like this. What would a dating app in the Middle East look like? Like that sounds like something that you might talk about, like while you and your friends just liming. It's like, yeah, how come it have no dating apps for the Middle East, right? But according to their laws, which are steeped in their religion, strict religious laws, right? The family is responsible for creating unions. So a dating app in the Middle East is going to probably, if you touch down as the owner of that app, you're looking to corrupt the people of the Middle East by introducing a dating app in there, because that goes against the way of life as it's written in their law books. So you
Yeah,
will
that
you
would
will
that would probably be some kind of not black market, but like, on the down low.
underground, yeah, it's probably an underground app, right? And I have one or two friends from Islamic countries who say yes, they have, ways of getting around and communicating with each other and all kind of thing. But you just go brave and stupid and want to advertise, Middle East dating, right? And that's just it's not it's it that would be totally against the law for them. Okay,
That's almost a literal death sentence.
yeah, right. Or you promise something technology wise in terms of, and this I came across with studying in terms of like Bitcoin. Bitcoin isn't new in the concept of from the concept of what it is. Since about the 1980s, people have been trying to digitize money in such a way that there's no third party central authority like a bank in charge of it. It's just that the technology did not exist. The computing power did not exist to be able to allow for the cryptographic security measures that a system like Bitcoin would have put into place. Things like blockchains as concepts would have existed in the 90s. But technology wise, in the 90s, a blockchain would not have existed for anything more useful than for keeping records and not financial records, because of the fact that, again, computing power might not have been there to have this global self-sustaining computer network that keeps track of um, everybody's financial information and transactions, etc. Right? So the thing is, ideas, there have been ideas. There have been ideas from like the 1950s with respect to certain computer concepts, but they just could not have been implemented until the technology existed to be able to allow for that to happen. So it wasn't until about 2009 when Satoshi Nakamoto decided, okay, yes, distributed computing has progressed far enough and will, of course, according to the laws of computing, will continue to improve in such a way that blockchain and Bitcoin could be a feasible means of, having financial transactions being recorded and being recorded and performed online. Everybody understand what I'm talking about here?
Yes, so when I first heard about Bitcoin, it it seemed like one of those underground things, but nowadays, um, you could pay for services online with Bitcoin and all kind of stuff now. So
Yeah.
legitimized.
I every time I think about Bitcoin, I want to cry because I know about it since it was so cheap, and I scoffed at it. And then when I decided maybe I should grab some Bitcoin, it would have been difficult but not impossible for me to grab. And but then I said, Bitcoin done, it used to be like less than a cent. It's now a couple hundred US. What's the sense of investing in Bitcoin? And like, last week or so, Bitcoin exceed 50,000 US for one. I mean, like if I had even grabbed one,
Yes.
it would have been like paying 300 US for something that's now worth 50,000 US. I'd have been set. I'd have been able to say, well, it's been fun being your teacher. I'm no longer your teacher. I'm going to live in luxury. I have 3 Bitcoins, right? So, but it is what it is, right? If you get a chance, buy Ethereum, people. Buy Ethereum. Yeah, way boy, Shavish. You know, I thought about that the other day, the food, and I still want to make good on it. Trust me, I will make good on it. For all of those who are laughing, right? I will make good. We will have some session where we can eat and meet and you know, right? Yeah. Tarek, I'm not making that mistake again. Right? Don't worry, Alexa. The year is not over, and you know we will have Ethereum at this point is fluctuating between 1,500 US for one Ethereum and 2,000. Somewhere it keeps going up between 1,500 and 2,000. Last December, Ethereum was at between 600 and 700 US. So if you bought one Ethereum coin last December, to now it would have doubled in value. Yes, buy Doggy coin. Doggy coin is actually growing, right? But Doggy coin is hard to get your hands on too. You have to buy you have to set up a Kraken account, buy some Bitcoin. No, Doggy coin, as in DOGE coin. Alright? Yeah. You have to buy some Bitcoin, get a Kraken account, and trade it for Doggy coin. That's the easiest way. That's the easiest way to get on Doggy coin. So, you know. Alright, so the last thing, describe the contents of the requirement specification. Alright. Yeah. Describing contents of the requirement specification documentation. The contents of the requirement specification would contain what? The functional and the non-functional requirements. And the functional requirements, of course, would be all right. The functional requirements would be requirements that satisfy the business rules and requirements. I don't want to put back the word requirements, right? Business rules and specifications. All right. This is the core purpose of the software. So your functional requirements are the core purpose. It's the core purpose of the software. Your non-functional requirements are, right? Oh my gosh, I just had the words and I forgot it. Right? Important yet non-specific, right? I don't think specific is the word I'm looking for here. Sorry. Non-specifically related to the operations of the business, but are important, right? But are important to the operation of the software. Example, things like security, right? Security, efficiency, right? And interface.
Optimization.
Right? Yeah. So, well, optimization, efficiency, right? They will be about the same, right? But these are the things that are important in terms of making the software acceptable to the user. because we can meet the functional requirements, but then the usability of the software could be very frustrating, right? It could be frustrating to want to use the software because the software is, it's not it mightn't be very useful. It comes like if somebody asks for an operating system and I give you a command line Linux operating system installed on your computer. I've given you functionally what you've asked for. You can run programs off of it. But then I haven't satisfied your non-functional requirements because it's not given to you in such a way that it's useful to you, right? You don't want to have to go and learn computer. You don't want to have to go and install a desktop environment over on the operating system that was provided to you. So, it's not a promise. It's like I fulfill the promise at the base level. All right, I fulfill the promise at the base level. So you have to satisfy both functional and non-functional requirements in order for the system to be acceptable to the user. Everybody's fine with that?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. So we pause here for today. We have a testing question to do and ERD model to do. We'll start with that from the next class. And as promised, I will start to upload the videos that we make in these class sessions here to YouTube. So I'll send you all the link to the YouTube. Okay?
Thanks, sir.
All right, everyone. Anybody have any questions, comments, issues before we leave?
Excuse, I have a